Arizona Wildlife Views, brought to you by the sale of hunting and fishing licenses and the Heritage Fund, lottery dollars working for wildlife. Some projects made possible by the Sportfish and Wildlife Restoration Fund.
Find birds. Let's go.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Arizona Wildlife Views. I'm your host, Jim Harkin. Today, we're on the banks of the Salt River, where a good spring runoff has been quite a boon for rainbow trout anglers. Later, we'll take you to a great place to look for wildlife that's closer than you think. But in our first story tonight, we welcome back an animal that's been missing from the landscape of Arizona for 50 years, the black-tailed prairie dog.
Black-tailed prairie dogs are tough, social animals that live in and around burrows deep within the prairie soil. They are also endlessly cute. For example, family members greet each other with what looks like a kiss. They're not really kissing, but gently touching their front teeth together, which is how prairie dogs recognize each other. Lewis and Clark, on their famous 1804 journey across North America, noted that, quote, "This wild dog of the prairie appears here in infinite numbers," end quote. At that time, an estimated 5 billion prairie dogs lived throughout the continent's vast prairie. Sadly, that is not the case today. These black-tailed prairie dogs live at the Phoenix Zoo, and until recently, the only place in Arizona to see them was in captivity.
What can we do you for?
Well, you're welcome to carry prairie dogs.
Nearly 50 years ago, black-tailed prairie dogs vanished from the Arizona landscape, but thanks to a multi-partner reintroduction effort, they're making a comeback.
This is a very important effort because of the loss of this species to the grassland. Restoring the grasslands to the conditions that they once were is a goal of the department. The prairie dog is a species of wildlife that manipulates its environment to the conditions and thus creates islands within seas of grasslands. Biodiversity and species diversities increased on prairie dog towns. Also, this is a national effort to conserve the species, and this contributes to the national goals that have been established.
For this first release, 74 black-tailed prairie dogs were captured at the Ladder Ranch in New Mexico shortly before they were driven to Arizona for release.
The prairie dogs that we're using in the release today were obtained from New Mexico. The populations in New Mexico are the prairie dogs that are the most genetically like the ones that were here in Arizona historically. We were cooperated with the Turner Endangered Species Fund, which has released prairie dogs on some of their ranches in New Mexico, and we're able to obtain animals from the Ladders Ranch. It was a 3-day effort for trapping, but it was a 2-week effort for pre-baiting to get the prairie dogs used to going into the traps.
The translocated prairie dogs weren't just dropped off at their new home and expected to automatically fend for themselves. As part of the site preparation, burrows that extend between 4 and 5 feet beneath the Earth's surface were dug by volunteers and department personnel. Ready-made burrow entrances of PVC pipe are surrounded by wire acclimation cages for the prairie dogs.
This is different from other wildlife releases in that very critical component for prairie dogs is their burrow system. That's what they use for escaping predators. And so what we have to do is allow them the opportunity to build a burrow system to be able to escape predators. So what we do with this release technique is we place them in cages directly onto the ground and entice them to burrow out of those cages, and thus creating a burrow system for escaping the predators. Once they have dug out or established a burrow, then we'll remove the cages.
A few of the prairie dogs escaped a little quicker than planned, and the race was on. But you have to be pretty fast to outrun a determined game and fish biologist.
How on earth did you get him?
Chased them down.
Nice.
While some of the prairie dogs were getting a feel for their new home, the daughter of the area land manager was busy naming them.
Speeder, climber, carrot, and marshmallow.
While naming these prairie dogs is fun, it's important to remember that they're wild animals and should never be kept as pets. They belong here on the grasslands, and they're being reintroduced to this area so they can play their part in contributing to a balanced habitat.
Prairie dogs are important to put back in the ecosystem because of how they manipulate their environments. They are a species known by some as a keystone species, in which they will create an environment within an environment to allow other species to survive. What we expect to see here once these prairie dogs are established is an increase in avian fauna or bird species, burrowing owls, as well as changes within the grassland ecosystem itself. We expect less mesquite trees in the area, thus opening up, making it more attractive to grassland species.
Black-tailed prairie dogs are one of Arizona's 2 native prairie dog species. The Gunnison's prairie dog is found in the northern part of the state, and historically the black-tailed prairie dog is found in the southeastern grasslands. Human-related factors, including poisoning and habitat fragmentation, eventually wiped out the blacktail in Arizona.
One of the national goals, state goals that we've established ourselves is to establish a population of nearly 5,000 occupied acres of prairie dogs. So within the next 5 years, we hope to continue releasing black-tailed prairie dogs in different areas that we've identified as potential black-tailed prairie dog habitat, thus creating a meta population of prairie dogs here in the state.
In spite of the fact that Lewis and Clark referred to them as dogs of the prairie, they aren't dogs at all, but members of the rodent family. They're also a main food source for the endangered black-footed ferret. In fact, it was the huge reduction in prairie dog populations that led to the near extinction of black-footed ferrets in North America.
It's exciting to be a part of it. Like I said, to get them on the ground after being extirpated for 50 years is thrilling to be a part of, and also to interact with all the important partners that have been part of it. We're on state land right now, so State Land Department has been a crucial partner in this, and some of the organizations like Sierra Club and Sky Island Alliance that have helped us move some of the dirt around and prepare this site. It's nice to get on the ground with the people who've made it happen.
This original 10-acre site, located in the Las Ciénegas National Conservation Area near Sonoyta, seems like a perfect location for the black-tailed prairie dog to thrive as we welcome them back to Arizona.
What I also have to recognize and commend is the adaptive process that this the community here in Sonoyta has taken in for the management of this grassland. They recognize that there was a component that is missing, and willing enough to allow us the opportunity to restore this species. Looking towards the future, I think, is very important with the climate change and so forth. Having a piece gone is something that it probably isn't good, and restoring that piece for these upcoming changes, I think, is very important.
The translocated prairie dogs are doing very well, and this summer they welcomed their first litter of pups. The spring of 2009 was one of the wettest we've had in a while, and while the river was up, the anglers were out. This is how Roosevelt Lake looks when it's full, completely full, with the dam holding back nearly 3 million acre-feet of water. This year, the rush of melting mountain snow, combined with winter rains, has pushed Roosevelt Lake to record levels for its flood control limit, and when that happens, there's only one thing that Salt River Project can do, and that's let some of the water out. This unanticipated release, and those from the other 3 reservoirs along the Salt River, have blessed Arizona anglers with an extra 11 miles of trout fishing below Saguaro Lake, the area known as the Lower Salt River.
We are stocking rainbow trout at Blue Point and water users, and it's 11 miles more fishing area than what we normally get.
Typically, the Salt River Project doesn't start pulling water from the Salt River side until late spring. They usually rely on water from the Verde River to meet irrigation and municipal needs. This extraordinary winter runoff has meant there is more water in the Salt, which allowed the Arizona Game and Fish Department to stock the entire reach of the Lower Salt River for a winter fishing bonus this year. And the anglers were ready. The truck filled with rainbow trout from the Page Springs hatchery made its first stop at the Blue Point Bridge. This man came armed with not only his best fly rod, but a rare, short-haired American trout pointer to assist him. The remaining trout were put in at the water users area just below Stewart Mountain Dam. Hatchery specialist David Fox had more help than usual for this release.
Game and Fish was up on top of the truck, and they handed me the net full of fish, and I handed it to 2 young boys that dumped them into the river. That was pretty cool. It's my first experience stocking the river or assisting Game and Fish, so that's pretty exciting. It was kind of weird feeling the fish come out of the net, but it was neat at the same time.
I took him out here last year. It's where my dad used to come fishing before he passed away with Fred, who's a fly fisherman. And so Fred told me that they were doing this again this year, and so we came out. They get out of school.
But the kids weren't the only ones who were having fun with the fish. Once the net releasing was complete, David pulled out the plug on the tank. And the rest of the trout shot out into the river, where a group of anglers were ready and waiting.
You came out today because they're stocking, or were you out here anyway?
I came out because they were stocking.
You don't want to miss anything, do you?
Not today, no. I always like to come out when they stock up here for the first time. It's beautiful out here.
Being able to put fish in these bodies of water down here near Phoenix so that these youngsters can come out, youngsters young and old can come out and go fishing is just a real thrill for me. And I'm sure that that would go for anybody that works with me in the fish hatchery system and also with the Game and Fish Department. It's just a good time, and it's good to see these young people out here actually getting out and fishing.
David stocked the river with over 1,500 rainbow trout, and they did not disappoint. It didn't take long at all for these fly fishermen to figure out what the rainbows were hitting on today.
So you make your own?
Yes, I make my own when I can. This is an Arizona semi-seal from Arizona Fly Fish Shop.
What's it supposed to look like?
It's supposed to look like a leech, or a small leech.
And the fish like that?
They sure do. As evidenced here today, right?
But the people catching the fish right away, that's fantastic. It doesn't always happen that way. It's awesome that that we had fly fishermen out here ready to catch the fish, and they sure did. And the kids had a fantastic time stocking the water.
Fly fishing is different from other types of fishing. For one thing, the lures are handmade and meant to represent what the local fish are feeding on as closely as possible. It's also beautiful to watch as the casters send their line gracefully through the air, trying to drop that lure in just the right spot. Then there is the Zen thing. Zen immerses you in a moment with total awareness of the events around you. To fly fish effectively, your focus must be on the bite and every change in your fly's dynamics. Some experts feel you must get into this Zen zone and stay there to consistently catch fish.
Well, I'm just starting, and I just think it's real neat. My buddy's been catching fish for years on fly fishing and keep saying, you got to switch over, so I did. And this year I'm catching fish on a fly rod instead of a spinning rod.
Is it a Zen thing?
I don't know if Zen's anything about it, but it's a fish thing.
The Hassayampa River is different than the Salt, mainly because it flows underground. But at the Hassayampa River Preserve near Wickenburg, you can enjoy this unique wildlife area.
Venturing out into a natural area to view wildlife or simply soak up the ambiance of the outdoors doesn't have to be a solitary endeavor. Today we follow the wildlife viewing guide to the Hassayampa River Preserve, where we meet up with a group of visitors enjoying a nature tour of the area.
There's a lot of great tracks in here. It's good when the sun is low like this for seeing tracks. You notice how they don't show up very well at all in the shadows.
Trails by the outside.
Here's a comparison, a javelina track versus a coyote. We're at the Nature Conservancy's Hassayampa River Preserve near Wickenburg, and this is a group from the Desert Botanical Garden that has come on one of our scheduled workshops. We've got a group of 10 people out here today who very few have been to this area before, and what we try to do at the garden is provide varied programming for many different lifestyles, many different age groups and interests to get out into the desert and learn about our Sonoran Desert home. This is one of the rare areas that has water year-round, and so it makes it a very, very special place.
For most of its 100-mile journey, the Hassayampa River flows only underground, but within the preserve, its crystal clear waters emerge, flowing above ground throughout the year. This lush streamside habitat is home to some of the desert's most spectacular fauna and flora.
This is very unique, standing in a little mesquite forest like this, and I want y'all to appreciate it because there just aren't a lot of these left. But the mesquite tree is really one of the more important trees that we've got in the desert. These are natives. There are a couple native species, velvet and honey mesquite. They hybridize quite a bit. But they love being where their feet in terms of roots can be close to the water, as Dave was saying. Neat thing about desert trees, and mesquites in particular, they actually get 2 bloom and fruiting seasons. They're very prolific, and these are a primary food source for so many animals this time of year. It's oftentimes tough to differentiate scat this time of year because everything is eating these, whether it's coyotes, javelinas, fox, they love this stuff. So we'll see if we can find some piles maybe of leftover scat that just have these seeds.
Eric is a very hands-on naturalist who likes to get the people who take his tours involved with their surroundings.
See if you can find a seed in these. Everyone get down and grab and kind of get a feel for what these are like. They're hard to break. And as you feel them a little more too and are breaking them apart, what do you notice about your fingers? Kind of just keep doing that a little bit. And notice if your fingers start getting sticky. We always ate the part in between. Anybody get to a seed yet? It's hard, isn't it? Yeah. So why is it hard to get to the seed? Survival of the seed.
There.
Oh, you got it. Nicely done. Well, so many of us are new to this area. Like, I've only been in Arizona 10 years, and I think in our group we actually do have a couple Arizona natives, but many people have moved here from very, very different climates. And it's very easy to sit in your home and not get out and experience nature, especially in Arizona, where it's really thought so much of the year to be very harsh in terms of the temperature. But that's why our winters here are so special too, is that you can get outside, you can experience it, you can actually put on long sleeves and be comfortable. And it really is about being out in nature and experiencing things firsthand. You can read as much for a book or from the internet, but until you really get to handle something, it really just brings it to light when people are out here and you get those wow factors, those wow moments. And that's the most rewarding thing for me as a trip leader, is to hear someone looking at the bigger picture, the way that things work together in nature. It's not so much about identifying a plant or an animal, it's about thinking about how those plants and animals interact together and with their environment. This is one of the best demonstrations. I bring this out quite a few times on trips, but
It's so stunning, and I just wanted everyone to remember where we're at. And this is the fruit of the saguaro. We obviously don't have any this time of year. This is these bloom, saguaro, that's our state flower. They actually bloom in April into May all the way into June, and then you get these beautiful red and kind of greenish fruits in July and August. And I just wanted to use the calyx, that's the dried flower part, that actually would attach to the fruit like this. So if we were to pick this apart, we'd find the dried white petals. But you can use these when they're dry to actually slice down the center.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
Pick it apart, and you just see how juicy and beautiful that fruit color is.
While some plants, like the saguaro, produce great edible fruit, there are plenty of desert plants that you shouldn't try to eat.
Those are Datura wrightii, and every bit of that is toxic. And there's a fine line, I always say, between hallucination and death. So while this was used, and it may still be used ceremonially, I'm certainly not condoning anyone trying any part of it.
Up on a high point in the preserve, you get a wonderful overview of one of the rarest forest types in North America, the Cottonwood willow forest. Thanks to the nourishing waters of the Hassayampa, over 600 acres of this habitat flourish here. The area is also home to many other native desert trees, like the Palo Verde, which literally means green tree.
They are both drought and heat deciduous, but they do most of their photosynthesis through their bark. So they just don't need the leaves because it's green. That's right.
The preserve is also home to a myriad of wildlife species. On this day, birds and insects were some of the most abundant.
Oh, this is good. There's actually a good funnel web spider right there. He's right on the edge too. If it's something they think they can get, they'll run out from the bottom of that funnel, envenomate it, and then step back and let the venom do its thing. There are funnel web spiders all over the world. Probably some of the most famous are the ones in Australia. Those are the ones that you hear about that are very, very venomous. But these are not to that extent.
Visitors to the preserve are generally curious about what kind of animal builds these large nests found in many of the trees. They're built by caterpillars.
This is a little kind of half geology and half biology right here, because while we have rocks on my palm right here, notice all these little black specks. Any ideas? More ideas? Oh, seeds. I said seeds. I heard something else. Droppings. We could actually, to put it very plainly, we've got caterpillar poop right there. And all those caterpillars munching on all these leaves up here, it literally at times can just be raining. You'll feel little things tapping you on the shoulder.
While dodging caterpillar droppings could be annoying, the sting of the tarantula hawk wasp sounds downright scary.
And there has been work done by a professor at the University of Arizona who actually rates stings and bites of varying things, and he will actually stimulate it, aggravate it to sting. And he said that the first couple minutes are kind of just a white hot pain that's pretty much indescribable, that no amount of screaming will make you feel any better. After that, it just becomes a mind-numbing pain, but it actually does quite a bit of damage to the tissues.
A desire to learn more about the ecology of Arizona is the main draw for the people on this tour.
I have learned everything beyond the sign from the highway, and I didn't realize everything was here, and it's wonderful to hear the history and see all the sights and the animals, and Eric is an outstanding naturalist, and it's great.
It's important because, as has been pointed out, places like this can disappear. And so the Nature Conservancy at least is keeping this one spot protected. And people need to see that there is a world outside of their computers and their televisions.
The Hassayampa River Preserve and headquarters were once part of the Frederick Brill Ranch, dating back to the 1860s. In 1913, the Brill Ranch became one of Arizona's first guest ranches when the new owners transformed it into the Garden of Allah and planted the numerous palm trees that still stand. The Nature Conservancy purchased the property in 1986 so this invaluable biological resource would be saved for future generations.
The Nature Conservancy really tries to keep this very natural. They've let the floods do their work down the Havasu River, and unlike the garden where everything is very groomed, manicured, we have display gardens, we have identification signs, they don't do as much of that here, and this is more about preservation of an area.
The Havasu River Preserve is a nature lover's paradise and one more place in Arizona where you can get out and get wild.
And that's our show for this evening. If you have any questions about anything you saw on the show, go to our website at azgfd.gov. On behalf of producers Gary Schaefer and Carol Lind, I'm your host, Jim Harkin. Thanks for watching.